The Goat House is back, ranking and grading all 7 of the NFL head coaching hires this 2025 offseason. Finally, all the jobs are filled, so let's break it down. So for the most part, in my opinion, I think all 7 head coaching hires were pretty solid additions for these teams. And then coming in at number 7 is going to be the New Orleans Saints hiring Kellen Moore. And yeah, it does come in last out of the 7, but I think it's a pretty decent hire, especially given the circumstances. The Saints' job was not appealing because the financial situation they're in. They got to deal with Derek Carr. They need a quarterback at a kind of a bad time to need a quarterback. A lot of the roster, the best parts of the roster, aging a little bit. So it's not an appealing job, even though they could be somewhat competitive. They have talent, but they still get a pretty solid candidate. Of course, there are questions when it comes to Kellen Moore, but what he did with the Eagles this year, the offensive background that he has, coaching with the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Eagles, so different systems, different teams, different players. I mean, that the experience is big. Can he be a head coach? Can he be a leader? Again, had success with the Eagles. A lot of it was just run the football to Saquon Barkley. And there was more to it than that. But how often is that going to work? Is that going to work with the Saints? Luckily, they do have Kamara. They don't have the Eagles' offensive line. And there's a lot of rebuilding to do. They got to find that quarterback. So I think his goal is to have success similar to what he did with Philadelphia. And the Saints are a bit away from that. So by the time they get to that, is he still going to be the head coach? Is this kind of a bridge coach? And again, the biggest question with him is, can he be that leader that players want to play for? But overall, given the circumstances, I think it's a pretty decent hire. I gave it a B-. It comes in at number 7. Next up is the Cowboys promoting offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer to their head coach position. I gave it a B. Maybe unlike everyone else, I think it's a decent hire. Is it a great hire? No, I think most people think it's awful. I don't think it's that. Cowboys started the year off a little slow. They couldn't really get things rolling. They played tougher teams. And I think they were just trying to adjust because remember in the offseason, they pretty much lost a bunch of key players. They didn't really gain anything. They did not get better going into the season. So I think it was a little bit of an adjustment. CeeDee Lamb was kind of carrying that receiver group. And as the year went on, you knew it eventually would click. Then Dak gets injured, but then things did click, actually. Not because Dak is out. That's ridiculous, but they figured it out. So I thought, they were a threat to anyone they played, maybe minus the Eagles at the end of the year. They were a threat. They could beat anyone. Remember them playing the Buccaneers, completely outplayed them. They outplayed the Bengals. They kind of just choked that game away on special teams. But this offense could be a threat. It could move the ball. They got Rico Dowdle going. So why should the Cowboys disrupt their offense once again? They did it moving on from Kellen Moore. Why would they do it once again when they finally got things rolling? They didn't really want to lose McCarthy. They just didn't want to give him a long-term deal, which he wanted. So I think it makes sense. This actually makes sense. And as they start to turn things around, as they have a little bit more cap space going forward where they're able to make the roster better in the offseason rather than it getting worse. I mean, that's maybe not going to happen ASAP. See it while that's going on. See if Schottenheimer could be that head coach. So I think it makes sense. I thought it was surprising that the Cowboys clicked, figured something out, and they were actually able to be somewhat of a threat. Like, nobody really wanted to play the Cowboys, deal with the Cowboys at the end of the year. They were that sneaky. So why change things up that much after you already lost McCarthy? So yeah, it does come in at number 6, but I give it a B. Coming in at number 5 and getting a B is the Jets hiring Aaron Glenn. And I might be a little bit lower on this one. Not that it's bad. I gave it a B. But a little lower on this one compared to everyone else. The main media, really hyping up Aaron Glenn. Deserving. I mean, he's a likable guy. He's a strong leader, we think. It feels like a guy players want to play for. That's great. I agree with that. But that's kind of what you're banking on with this. And that was kind of the same situation as Robert Saleh. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to go exactly the same way as that era. But he's a defensive mind. He's not coaching the defense. He brings Steve Wilks in. Even with his defense, I thought it was a little bit overrated, like too much based around man coverage. It can win you some regular season games. So really the big positive is he's a leader and players maybe want to play for him. I think that's true. That's kind of what you're banking on, and then hoping he can build a roster. But there are other coaching hires that bring in more positivity in specific spots like quarterback or specifically offense. boosting the offense. So I think it's somewhat similar to hiring Robert Saleh, the way they did a few years ago. So overall, good hire. He was one of the top candidates for a reason. A strong leader, could turn this thing around. I don't see the Jets being dysfunctional or bad under him. I think he kind of could. That's another thing. I think he kind of can get their ownership on track to where they need to be. And they'll listen to him. It basically is what I'm getting at, which they kind of need. So that'll come. Jets hiring Aaron Glenn will come in at number 5. Number 4 is going to be the Raiders hiring Pete Carroll. I gave it a B+. I think it's a solid hire. I think the only knock here is that, he's much older. Things weren't going super, super great at the end with the Seahawks, but they weren't a disaster or anything close to that. So he's a little older. Is he washed up? Is he getting towards wash up? That's really the only flaw here. I think you get a guy that knows how to coach. He knows what a good team looks like. He knows how to build a team. And they're starting fresh with their staff as well, so obviously he's going to have an input on that. I don't think there's a chance they'll be dysfunctional. I don't think there's a chance that they'll be a bad team. He's already done a good job keeping Patrick Graham. Hiring Chip Kelly, I think, was a big-time addition. I think that was a big-time addition. I think he'll find his way eventually as a head coach once again. So he's a good offense coordinator, especially where the league is heading. But I think Pete Carroll's already starting to do a good job is what I'm saying. They have a shot to be a solid team this year just by adding him, and he'll make sure they'll do a very solid job this offseason with the cap space they have, being able to bring in quality players through free agency in the draft. It's not a mystery. Antonio Pierce was a big mystery. Is he actually a good head coach? Can he help build a roster? Is his roster management decisions in the offseason, will they be correct? Too much of a mystery. Enough with that with the Raiders. Get a guy that could do the job, could help build a roster. This could be a very good bridge option, honestly. He can help start it, kind of get it going from the ground up, get them in the right position, because he's not going to last forever. Pete Carroll, that is. He's gonna get older, and I think he will kind of get them in the right position going forward. So I think it's a pretty solid hire for the Raiders, adding Pete Carroll, and I give it a B+. Coming in at number 3, the Jacksonville Jaguars hiring Bucs offense coordinator Liam Cohen. I think this is a great hire, actually. I know people will kind of rip in Cohen. I think it's because he's an interesting dude. I don't think it has anything to do with football. I give this an A. I think it's that good. I actually believe, you could debate it was Ben Johnson, but I actually believe that this was the Jags' number 1 coach. Cohen was the Jags' number 1 option the whole time. And I think that's because it specifically not only helps the offense, it specifically helps Trevor Lawrence, which they need, because you got to unlock those tools, because he showed it. We know, everybody on the planet knows he has the talent, just has to stay healthy. But the coaching needs to be better as well. And you look at this roster, they got talent on this roster, especially on offense, adding Brian Thomas Jr. last year. So I think this is not only going to elevate the play calling, the team in general compared to last year, but specifically it will get Trevor Lawrence going. That's exactly what they needed. So they checked off a major box with that. Looked at Cohen having the experience of playing the quarterback position, coaching offense in multiple spots, or coaching quarterbacks, coaching the offense, and now a head coach, but coaching Kentucky the year that Will Levis looked like a future top 5 pick. Was before he declared for the draft. Then, being with the Rams, obviously, that's really good experience to have. And then with Baker Mayfield in the Bucs, everyone thought Baker could take a step down again this year without Canales. Even better, had the best year of his career. So we know for sure he knows the quarterback position, could work with quarterbacks, can elevate quarterbacks, therefore elevates the offense. And I see some similarities with this team where they're aligned with the Buccaneers, the strengths and weaknesses, mainly the strengths. So I think it's fantastic. I think he's doing a really good job. The only question is, can he be a leader that players really look up to and listen to? That's really the only question. But I like this one. Again, it specifically helps what they needed most. Offense, even more specific, Trevor Lawrence. Splitting up number 1 and number 2 is super tough, and it's basically a 1A, 1B situation. I gave both an A+. So number 2, the Patriots hiring Mike Vrabel. And, this is a big-time hire. Love this hire. He was their number 1 choice. They got him right away. Obviously, Vrabel wants to be there. And the reason you could argue this is the number 1 hire, and reasons why I gave it an A+, is we know Mike Vrabel is a good head coach. Those teams he had with Tennessee, they had some really good, there were some dominant teams in the regular season. That's the only knock. Can they get over the hump? Is he too old school with the team building and the play style? Can they get over the hump in the playoffs, get in the Super Bowl? But he has Drake May, what a lot of us think he could become. The Titans did not have that. But anyways, we know he is a damn good head coach. We know he knows what good football looks like, how he could build a roster. We know players want to play for him. He's a strong leader. We know these things. And I think what the Patriots already have really fits, Mike Vrabel football as well. They don't have to change too many things up, obviously. And another reason you could argue this is number one and why it's an A+ is this is a very safe hire. Like, that the Patriots are not going to be a very bad team or dysfunctional under Mike Vrabel. This is going to be a sneaky good team, I think, right away. I think they're gonna whatever they do in the offseason, I think they're gonna exceed expectations this year under Mike Vrabel. So this, compared to number one could be a boom or bust guy. Like, we don't really know for sure, but Mike Vrabel, it's going to work out with the Patriots and Mike Vrabel. They're going to be a solid team. There's no being a bad team. This is a big-time hire and a reason it gets an A+. And number one has to be the Chicago Bears hiring Ben Johnson, the Lions offense coordinator. And again, like I said, it's a 1A, 1B situation. Both the Patriots and the Bears got an A+. And again, the argument for Vrabel versus Ben Johnson is, we know Vrabel's going to work out. We know they're not going to have down years. I don't think they're not going to be dysfunctional. Vrabel's going to have that team being a threat every single week, every single year. Where this is, I don't think it's that much of a mystery. I think things will work out here at least eventually, but we don't know, I guess, what Ben Johnson is as a head coach. A little bit of a mystery, but why this is number one, I mean, this is absolutely what the Bears absolutely needed. I said absolutely one too many times there, but I can't stress it enough. Not only do the Bears need to turn things around, they need to be more functional. They need better coaching, clock management situations. Obviously, not only do they need the offense to get going, number one, they need their prized possession, their future Caleb Williams, to work out. They need him to get going. And because it's been a disaster when it comes to Bears quarterbacks and drafting him in the first round. They took him first overall. He's supposed to be this special talent, and Jaden Daniels, what he did, he was supposed to be a special talent as well. What he did, it makes the Bears go, Caleb Williams and the whole world go, he has to be good. He has to work out. So they absolutely needed a guy that can not just get all those other things going, the offense going, but get Caleb Williams going. And this was that number one guy here. But if you dig even deeper, you look at the specifics. What's been the Bears' major issue? I mean, before Caleb Williams, there's a major issue this year with Caleb Williams and company, but even before Caleb Williams, a lot of things stand out. But number one, not getting the ball out quickly. These long developing plays, or the quarterback holding the ball too long, just not getting the ball out, looking to improvise too much. The ball needs to come out on plays quicker, and the offensive line has been a disaster. It's been very, very bad. And sometimes the offensive line makes the quarterback look worse. Sometimes the quarterback make the offensive line look worse. And that's been going on with Caleb Williams this 1 year and before that. And you take a look at what Ben Johnson did with the Lions. What stood out the most? It starts with the offensive line, how well coached they were, how well built they were. So Ben Johnson knows what that looks like. So, you can't just say he will get the offensive line going. They have to actually go out and do it. But he'll focus on that, get the offensive line going. And another thing about that offense, they got the ball out quick. Very quick reads, simplified plays that really were unique, threw off opposing defenses. So this is exactly what the Bears need. I guess the debate against that is, maybe if you don't like this hire, it's probably the people that, there's probably can't be too many people that don't like this hire, but it'd probably be the people that are saying, well, the Bears are so different from that. Like, he had a great offense line. He had a quarterback that got the ball out fast. So it is a major adjustment, I guess, for Ben Johnson, but it's exactly what the Bears needed here, and that was Ben Johnson. So they got what they needed. This is one of those hires where even if it doesn't work out, like, just say it's a disaster, kind of like the last couple the Bears have went, even if it doesn't work out, we're gonna be sitting there and going, like, everyone's gonna be talking how it was a disaster, but it had to be done. It's one of those situations where if it fails, like the Eberflus one fails, it looks stupid because no one really had him as a top candidate. He was a good defensive coach, but same thing with Nagy. Like, no one was really in love with him being a head coach. Everyone loved Ben Johnson. So if those ones, it kind of makes sense. You'd be very pissed at the way they ended. Obviously, people would be pissed if Ben Johnson didn't work out. But my point is, it had to be done. No matter how it ends, we're going to go look back at it and be like, that was the right hire either way. Like, no one knew this was going to happen, So that's the reason it's number one. It's something that specifically, it helps specifics. It helps the offense, helps Caleb Williams. It definitely should get them going in the right direction. And it just had to be done. Absolutely is what the Bears needed. So that's why it's number one. My hope for the Bears is start building through the drafts. draft. Stop trading away picks. You can't build this roster around a young player in Caleb Williams by just trading and all your assets for some veteran players here and there. Build the roster the way it's done. Build it to the draft. That's what I want the Bears to do. If they do that and draft well, they're a team to watch in the future for sure, because starting with the staff and the talent they already have. But they do need a lot more talent. So very interesting team to watch this offseason. But that'll do it. Let me know your rankings, your grades. I'm sure people will have different opinions, so I'm curious to see those in the comments. We have a bunch of offseason content rolling out pretty much every single day, covering the NFL offseason. So check that out. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.